with so, and you did not seize me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled.
And they all deserted him and fled. And a young man followed him, with nothing but a linen cloth about his body. And they seized all the chief priests right into the courtyard of the high priest. And he was sitting with the guards and warming himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and the whole council, but they found none. For many bore false witness against him, and their witness did not agree. And some stood up and bore false witness against him, saying, Yet not even so did their testimony agree. And the high priest stood up in their midst and asked Jesus, but he was silent and made no answer. Again the high priest asked him,
Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?
And Jesus said,
I am. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven.
And the high priest tore his clothes and said,
Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your decision?
And they all condemned him as deserving death. And some began to sigh. And the guards received him with blows. And as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the maids of the high priest came, and seeing Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said,
You understand what you mean.
And he went out into the gateway, and the maid saw him, and began again to say, A little while, again the bystanders said to Peter,
Certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean.
But he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear,
I do not know this man of whom you speak.
And immediately the cock crowed a second time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him, Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests, with the elders and the scribes, and the whole council held a consultation. And they bound Jesus and led him away, and delivered him to Pilate. And Pilate asked him,
Are you the king of the Jews?
And he answered him,
You have said so.
And the chief priests accused him of many things. And Pilate again asked him,
Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you.
But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate wondered. Now at the feast, he used to release for the insurrection. There was a man called Barabbas, and the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he always did for them. And he answered them,
Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?
For he perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priest had delivered him up. But the chief priest stirred up the crowd to have him release for them Barabbas instead. And Pilate again said to them,
Then what shall I do with the man whom you call the king of the Jews?
And they cried out again,
Crucify him!
And Pilate said to them,
Why? What evil has he done?
But they shouted all the more,
Crucify him!
So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is, the praetorium. And they called together the whole battalion. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and plaiting a crown of thorns, they put it on him, and they began to salute him.
Hail, King of the Jews!
And they struck his head with a reed, and spat upon him. and they knelt down in homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. And they compelled a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. And they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of a skull. And they offered him wine mingled with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them to decide what it shall take. And it was the third hour when they crucified him, and the inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified two robbers, one on his right and one on his left. And those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying,
Aha! You who would destroy this temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross.
So also the chief priests mocked him to one another with the scribes, saying,
He saved others. He cannot save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe.
Those who were crucified with him also reviled him. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice,
Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani.
which means,
My God, why have you forsaken me?
and some of the bystanders, hearing it, said,
Behold, he is calling Elijah.
And one ran and, filling a sponge full of vinegar, put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink, saying,
Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down.
And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. And when the centurion, who stood facing him, saw that he thus breathed his last, he said,
Truly, this man was the Son of God.
There was also women looking on from afar, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James the younger and of Joseph, and Salome, who, when he was in Galilee, followed him and ministered to him, and also many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem. And when evening had come, since it was a day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself looking for the king, he granted the body to Joseph and laid him in a tomb which had been hewed out of the rock. And he rolled a stone against the door of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph.
Is it because of the passion? That is why our voice have gone down. We are all feeling so bad. Oh, this is good though. My dear friends in Christ, this is one of those days where all of us participate in the gospel of the day, in the sense that the gospel outlined for all of us our responses. Crucify him. And after the mass, the priest will say, Shebi, all of you are finished crucifying him. after you go and tell them in the parish that their sins is the one crucifying him. But then, my dear friends in Christ, it is so wonderful. It affords us the opportunity to reflect the different characters in the gospel passage. And this is because the readings, as we have taken them, if you look at it very well, you will see that in one of these characters, what do I mean?